Alrighty, so today we are going to do the season preview of Austin FC. And by the way, it's been a while since we done a season preview of a Western Conference team. I mean, when you look at the last couple of season preview, and really the majority of the season preview I've done are Eastern Conference team, and that is not a big surprise considering the fact that, when I start doing the season preview of teams involving in the CONCACAF Champions Cup, majority of them were in the Eastern Conference, and that even included when I did finish the season preview for all these teams involving the CONCACAF Champions Club. Unfortunately, in terms of the alphabetical order, Atlanta, of course, goes first before Austin. But that being said, for Austin FC, there's definitely a lot of concern heading into this upcoming season. Not just because of the fact that they underachieved badly last season and they regressed badly last year. They didn't do much this off season, or at least right now, they didn't really address their biggest needs this off season, and they are basically staring in a site where it feels like the limited resources and limited signings that they had is going to have to do when it comes to the upcoming season. And that's not really a good thing to see, especially as I mentioned, this is a team that pretty much underachieved. And not to mention, I think the other big issue of this team is that if you want to talk about a team that is very thin in terms of roster, Austin is definitely an example of it. Now, last season, as I mentioned, it was a very disappointing season for Austin, a huge regression for them to finish the season with a 10-9-15 record and finish with 39 points. And that includes just a massive collapse in the second half of the season. Like, as soon as the Leeds Cup, of course, happened and a disastrous kind of Leeds Cup that has, it kind of rolled over into the post Leeds Cup. And it's just, it gone so bad to a point where, a lot of Austin fans were hoping that this offseason they were going to do something. And especially with their new sporting director, Rodolfo Barrero, looked like he was going to do something about it, but as I said, they haven't really done much in terms of some of their transfer. And then, of course, their last playoff appearance happened in 2022 before their last playoff round wins also happened that year as well. They never won MLS Cup because it's only their third season coming into MLS. Or actually, no, it's not their third season, it's their fourth season coming into MLS. Now, in terms of some of the ins and some of the transfer that I said. So as I mentioned, it's been relatively underwhelming. Though they did made a big signing today. They did announce the signing of Diego Rubio, which was a much needed signing for them because they desperately needed a guy in that number 9 position. Consider there was a question: is Jarzy Zardes still going to be the main number 9 on this team, or are they really going to bet their house that Rigoni will finally live up to his potential and live up to the DP tag that they of course got. And then of course they got a goalkeeper from the Seattle Sounders in Stefan Cleveland, which again, out of all the needs that Austin need this offseason, I didn't think goalkeeping was one of those spots that they need. So this was kind of an interesting move, and especially for Stefan Cleveland too. I mean, for him to escape the shadow of Stefan Fry, I didn't think that he was gonna go to a team that's already pretty good in terms of the goalkeeping spot, and I think Brad Stuver is still gonna be the number one, even though I'm pretty sure Stefan Cleveland is definitely going to create a bit of a goalkeeping competition down there for Los Verdes. They also got Nate Jones in the draft, but as I mentioned, he of course is no longer with the team. And then they got a new left back in Jeremy Barrow. And then probably the biggest signing that they have this offseason, besides the Diego Rubio signing that was announced today, is getting FC Dallas winger Hodder O'Brien. Now, in terms of players that no longer on this team, there is a lot of players that no longer in this team, and they lost a lot of depth pieces. It includes Johan Romana, Nick Lima, Maxi Urruti, Memo Rodriguez, Adam Lundquist, Rodney Redes, Amro Tarek, Charlie Asensio, Kip Keller, Nate Jones, of course, after Austin, of course, drafted him. He is now going to the Colorado Rapids. Musa Jite, who I think is still on loan right now with Austin. Damian Lass, Sofian Jafo, Alonso Alcompe Chavez, Will Bruin, and Brandon Craig, who is actually now back with the Philadelphia Union after just one of the weirdest loan that Austin, of course, had, and a player that I thought he was going to provide some more center back reinforcement for this team, but he never really made an appearance and really break into the Austin team, and it just kind of makes me wonder what in the world was the point of them deciding to sign a guy, or at least known him to Austin, and a guy that I thought he was going to get more minutes with Los Verdes compared to him doing with the Union, and that just didn't really quite work out whatsoever. Now, in terms of preseason, the good news for Austin is that they haven't done that bad in the preseason. They drew 1-1 against the Philadelphia Union, won 2-1 against FC Cincinnati, and then drew 3-3 against Louisville City. They still have a lot of preseason game, including one of the team participating in the Coachella Valley Invitational, and that starts with them playing against the Chicago Fire, the LA Galaxy, and the New York Red Bulls, both on the 7th, 11th, and on Valentine's Day in February 14. And then their final preseason game is going to be against NYCFC. But as I said before, when it comes to preseason kind of resort, you got to take that as a great grain of salt. Where the fact that not everybody is up to match fitness. Teams like to try something different, and also in terms of these preseason game, the format could be completely different. You're not gonna see some of these preseason game where it's exactly 90 minutes. You might have a 30 minutes spent with one team, and then another 30 minutes with another team, and so forth and so forth. So yeah, this is why I've always said the preseason really doesn't matter in terms of how this team is going to perform this season. I mean, you can have a team that perform well in the preseason, can go undefeated in the preseason, and they look terrible in the regular season, and vice versa. So, but looking at the first 10 games, so for Austin, they're going to opening the season against Minnesota United on February 24th. Then they immediately have a relatively tough schedule with them playing on the road against Seattle, playing at home against St. Louis, playing at home against the Philadelphia Union, have to go on the road to play against Orlando City, and then they have their first Copa Tejas match against FC Dallas. So that's a brutal schedule to start. And this is where, the lack of depth, and unless if they start to get some more reinforcement heading into these upcoming weeks, this team could be in serious trouble and could really get themselves sick near the bottom of the Western Conference because how brutal the start of the schedule is. But then after that, they play against the San Jose Earthquakes, which usually should be an easy matchup. But then you just realize Austin have never beaten the San Jose Earthquake, so you could argue that's easily as a tough match as it is, considered that, as I said, it's hard to believe, but they have never beaten the San Jose Earthquakes. But then after that, they once again go on the road to play against St. Louis before going on the road to play in the other Copa Tias match against the Houston Dynamo, and then they return home to play against the LA Galaxy. And then again, just I think the only game I can think that is winnable is against Minnesota. But despite the fact that as I'll talk about in the season preview of Minnesota and how my concern is with the team not having a head coach, when you look at the roster itself, like if you just kind of subtract the fact that they don't have a head coach and they have to put an interim head coach heading into the season, the roster is actually not that bad, and you could argue could be still be a playoff kind of team if the most of the players will play up to the potential. So that's not going to be an easy game either. But if they don't win that one, boy oh boy, they got a murderous road to start the season. Now, in terms of their post Leeds Cup, their first opponent will be against Nashville SC on the road before they return home to play Vancouver. Then they go on the road to play against Toronto before playing on the road against LAFC. Then they return home to play Houston, RSL. Then they go on the road to play against the Portland Timbers before going on the road to play the Galaxy. And then they return home and play the Colorado Rapids. And I would say that their schedule definitely got a little easier as the season goes along, but it really kind of doesn't matter if they're out of the playoff picture by that point, and maybe they'll use if they are out of the playoff picture by then, maybe they can use it as a way for them to play spoiler. Consider they do face some teams that could maybe you could say on the verge of in the bubble in terms of making the playoffs in the Western Conference. Now, looking at the strength of this Austin team, there's not really a lot of strength I would say about this Los Verdes team, but I'll say the midfield is still the strongest point of this team. I mean, the likes of Danny Pereira and Owen Wolf, I think that's gonna be very good. Although it feels like maybe Alex Ring is gonna still play in that spot, and Ring has started to kind of lost a step a bit, especially last season. But is that mainly because of the fact that he has started to age a little bit, and I think he's now into his 30s. And then let's also not forget to mention one of the best number 10 in Sebastian Driussi, who last season there was no doubt that he regressed last year. But even with the regression and the fact that he was battling some injuries throughout the season, he still performed very well last season. And in fact, he was pretty much the offense for this Austin FC team at time, and that he's probably going to have to beat the offense once again, given the shape of the roster that they have. Because the weakness of this team, oh boy, there is a lot of weakness of this team, and obviously the first weakness is depth. As I mentioned, this team is very, very thin. When you look at the roster that they do not have a lot of player on their roster right now, and that there's also a lot of question mark in terms of even the depth pieces that they have right now. There's a reason why Austin fans are very concerned in terms of how their team going to perform, especially against some of the best team. And what happened if they do go through a bit of an injury crisis like they did at times last season? This team could be doomed from the beginning. And then of course the defense, which was a huge issue last season. Guess what? They did not fix that defense whatsoever this offseason. And again, this is where you know when a team is kind of in some trouble. In the off season, and you can know that the fans might be very concerned about how the team has been heading into this season, is the fact that they didn't even address the biggest need in this offseason. I mean, their biggest needs this offseason was clearly on the defensive front. And the fact that they didn't really sign any center back whatsoever, and most likely they might be heading into the season with the same center back partnership of Matt Hedges and Julio Cascante. I mean, don't get me wrong, Matt Hedges is a great defender. If he was still with FC Dallas right now, I mean, he's kind of started to age a little bit, and then Julio Cascante, he's been very inconsistent in terms of his performance. So there's a lot of question mark in terms of it, and that's also not forget about the fullback depth too, where there's also a lot of question mark in that. I mean, basically the entire back line is bad for this Austin team, and the fact that they didn't do anything to address that, it feels like we could see a repeat of what we saw last year, and that Brad Stuver, unfortunately, he's gonna have to do a couple of bailed out job this season if they don't address that. And then, of course, the lack of a real number nine, which technically that maybe could be reserved now that Diego Rubio is in this team. And, Diego Rubio, I think he still got it. You saw during his time with the Colorado Rapids where he was still a guy that can score 10 plus goal, even though the Rapids didn't have a lot of weapons on the attacking end. But still, there's still a lot of question in the number nine position. And that, again, the other big weakness of this team is the fact that they still have some really bad contract on their team. I mean, the Rigoni contract, yeah, unfortunately they cannot get out of that contract this season, and that they're just gonna have to sit and pray, and hope that he can finally develop to be the player that he is. Because I've said before when he first came to MLS, where I give him the benefit of the doubt that he didn't click immediately, and you expect that in the next season or two he's going to finally click. And now we are 18 months into his tenure with Austin FC, and he's still nowhere near the level that he should be, and that he is easily now becoming one of the worst DP in the league, and one of the worst contract that a team currently have to sit on. And then the expectation of this team, obviously it's got to be make playoffs. But again, with the way how this team has looked heading into the season, it is really hard for me to say that they're going to meet this expectation. It really feels like it could be a repeat of last season. And there's no doubt that, with this Austin fan base, and there are some impatience in between this Austin fan base, especially after tasting the glory of 2022. They will not be happy if this is going to be a team that is going to underachieve just like they did last season. And as I'll make that video talking about the hot seat index, and where I put all the head coaches in the hot seat index, I won't be surprised that you'll see me put Josh Wolf near the top of the list. And you could maybe even argue in terms of who has the hottest seat coming into the season. Josh Wolf kind of has that role, because I mean, last season it was kind of a bit of a miracle, the fact that he survived. I mean, out of all the head coach that got fired, I thought Josh Wolf might be one, considering a lot of these teams were very aggressive when it comes to firing their head coach. I guess maybe Josh Wolf got the benefit of the doubt because of the success that he was able to guide the team in 2022. But he is definitely going to be on the hot seat in 2023. But I also think that you could maybe say that, besides him being in the hot seat, maybe some of the front office member of this team could be on the front seat. As I mentioned, with their new sporting director, Rodolfo Alvaro, I know he just came to this Austin team, but he's already kind of been a bit of an unpopular figure with the way that they just haven't really made any signings whatsoever to improve this team and to just kind of get themselves back to where they should be in the 2022 season, which is a team that should be playing for playoff contention. But there you have it. That is pretty much it in terms of looking at Austin FC in this season preview. And I know it feels like this season preview looks very doom and gloom for this Austin team. I mean, I will say that when you look at this team, if they can stay healthy, it still could be on fringe of making a playoff team. But again, as I said, and as I look at how the fact that they have not addressed any of their issue, well, mostly not many of the issue that they had last season and heading into this year, it feels like with the way that the roster is being built, it could be the same as last year. I mean, it's hard to be positive about this team, and it's hard to believe that this team could get themselves back to playoff contention. But who knows? We'll see how it's going to be throughout the season. And if you're an Austin fan, let me know in the comments below what do you think of this video, and also you think the strength, the weakness, and expectation is for this team heading into this season. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.